Welcome to the Hockey Writers Chicks and Sticks, a weekly show hosted by some of our best female hockey writers, bringing you the latest news, rumors, trades, player grades, game results, and much more. From talking hockey with NHL personalities to tackling the latest big issues, our team covers everything hockey and more. So sit back, relax, and enjoy some Chicks and Sticks.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 29 of Chicks and Sticks, brought to you by the Hockey Writers. My name is Melissa Boyd, and I'm once again joined by my partners in crime, Christy Flannery, Hannah Garfield, and Mariah Stark. How are you doing tonight, ladies?
Surviving. Maybe thriving.
Maybe thriving is questionable at this moment in time.
Thriving's always questionable.
How's the Christmas shopping coming?
I didn't even start.
I got one. No, two. We have two. Done.
At least you got your tree.
The star turned off.
There you go. There. At least one of us is ready. Okay. Before we start, I just wanted to remind everyone that if you're enjoying our show, make sure to drop us a like, a follow, or a comment from wherever you're watching or listening, and send us a question if you have any. Well, as you can see, we have a special guest with us tonight, and usually he's with us behind the camera. He's not on camera. He's our trusted producer, Matthew Zator. He's also the credentialed Vancouver Canucks writer at THW. I wonder why we have him on the show this week, because the Canucks have been stealing all the headlines since Sunday night when they cleaned house, both in the front office and behind the bench. So we're going to have a chat with Matthew to see what's going on in Vancouver, what's coming, what has happened, and how things are going with all these new changes. So thanks for joining us, Matt.
Woohoo!
Yeah, happy to be here.
He's doing two jobs at once.
Yep.
All right. I think Hannah has the first question for you.
I do. So for those who haven't been paying close attention to the Canucks, I am one of them. How did they go from being a second round playoff team in 2020, which for me, that was kind of like the last time they were really, really on my radar, to now they're firing their coach and GM less than 2 years later?
Well, I mean, during that time that they made the playoffs, and it was a weird year, right? It was COVID year and a bunch of stuff. And when the NHL stopped and did the stoppage, they actually weren't in a playoff spot, but then of course played the qualification and made it into the actual playoffs. So I don't really think that's a playoff. I mean, that they made the playoffs in a normal situation. Even that year, they had troubles defensively. Markstrom was bailing them out almost every game. And it's, they were pretty much the same. I mean, they got on kind of a roll in the playoffs, and, all Thatcher Demko did against the Vegas Golden Knights. I mean, it was basically him in that series. And it wasn't really the team. It wasn't because the Canucks were good that they made it. It was most of the goaltenders. So, I mean, Demko was the reason they actually had a chance in that series. So, I mean, yes, they were a playoff team technically, but I still think those problems existed back then as well.
In a recent article that you wrote, you mentioned about Boudreau as a possible replacement for Travis Green. Are you happy now that your psychic vision came true?
Ecstatic. I've been wanting Bruce Boudreau to be the coach of the Canucks for a while now. Every time he was out of a job, I'm like, Canucks should pounce on this guy. He's one thing he does really well. We've already seen it in the first two games. He has a small sample size, but he gets a lot out of his players, and there's already a different positive energy. I don't know if it would have been, any coach coming in would have had that positive impact. Mm-hmm. But Boudreau just has that personality. The system, I think, really fits what the Canucks are trying to do with their offensive players, a young talent. I think he's just the right coach for the right time. And it's already kind of showing it. And by extension, Scott Walker coming in as an assistant coach, he's already kind of changed the penalty kill to be a good penalty killing unit again. It's just a huge difference around the team and even how they play. So, for me, it's excited to see Boudreau actually hired. I wasn't sure that he was. I mean, whenever I do articles like this, it never comes true. And except when I predicted Tyler Toffoli coming to the Canucks, that came true too. So
hey, you got one. We're on to 2.
Yeah, I'm 2.
So that's behind the bench. There was also changes in the front office, and actually some news dropped today, Thursday. We're recording on Thursday. The Canucks brought in Jim Rutherford as the new president of hockey operations. So basically going back to the front office structure that the Canucks had back a few years when Trevor Linden had the same position. What do you think of this hire? So they brought Jim Rutherford out of semi-retirement, I guess. and what potential GM candidates are out there, or do you think would be on his radar for the new GM?
Well, first of all, I think it's a good move. Bringing in a guy that's like, he's super experienced, as much as what people have there are already people against this on Twitter saying that he's just another Jim Benning. He's not going to he's going to make mistakes as well. He did it in Pittsburgh, some of the trades he made. But the thing is, he's not going to be the GM. He's president of hockey operations. He's going to hire a GM. Sure, he's going to have input on stuff, but he's not going to be the ones executing the trades. It'll be the GM he brings in. There's already talk that he wants a guy that he's going to mentor. In my view, mentoring means this is going to be a young GM. This is not going to be a guy that's going to bring in like a Mike Gillis. They're not going to bring in a guy that's been here already, a veteran GM. They're just going to bring in a guy that, I'm thinking like a guy like Lawrence Gilman in Toronto. Yes, he's been around, but he hasn't been a GM. Scott Mellenby, there's been talk about him. John Ferguson Jr. is another name. I mean, I think it's going to be a young GM that's going to come in, a guy that hasn't been around the block a ton. We'll see who they actually hire, but I think they should hire a progressive GM, a guy that has more ideas, new ideas, because I don't think bringing in an old guy again, because I think it's just going to be the same again. So
I love some new blood in this league.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
So in your opinion, who is the most to blame for the mess the Canucks are in right now?
Oh, there's a lot to blame to go around. You could go right up to ownership. I mean, Aquilinis have been, accused of putting their fingers in the pie too much as owners, saying that, direction. And he in his press conference, he said, well, owners own, GMs. What was the whole thing? Coaches coach, players play, GMs trade, wherever he said. But that's hypocritical in my opinion. He said the owners own. Well, there's talk that he has been involved in a lot of the decision making, player moves and stuff like that. So that's a lie in my opinion. But it goes from ownership down. I mean, Jim Benning, we all know the trades he made that were kind of questionable. His contracts that, Louis Eriksson, guys like that. And, there's a lot of stuff that can go around. Travis Green gets a lot of blame for his system. And we've already kind of seen a change in the system. And all of a sudden the Canucks are playing better. I don't know if that's a coincidence or is it just a short-term thing, but the Canucks just seem to play a whole ton different. Just watching this team seems like night and day to me.
Well, it's not every day that the owner hires the head coach.
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting. So you're right. It's a bit hypocritical.
What's hockey? What's life about some hypocrites?
Yeah, that's right.
Oh my gosh. That was a very dark note. So on a more positive note, Vancouver has, had quite a few young players make their lineup this season. Have they been meeting or even exceeding expectations in your opinion?
Well, I mean, Vasily Podkolzin didn't come in all like Pettersson when he came in, scoring goals a lot and getting tons of points, but he's sure turned into a really solid player for the Canucks. And looks like Boudreau is going to be using him in an offensive role, which is great. I've been clamoring to get Podkolzin a lot more minutes from when he started, and Green kind of was playing him at that 5-6 minute range. He kind of got up a nice time as Green kind of got more confidence in him, but he still, I don't think, played him correctly, because they kept benching him in third periods. Young guys have to play. You got to have them and put them in positions to succeed. And I don't think Green was ever doing that with Podkolzin. And it looks like he's going to be he's playing with Pettersson and Garland, which is like two great offensive players. Pettersson doesn't have a ton of confidence right now, but he'll get it. And Podkolzin just has so much that two-way game. And that's the thing I think the Canucks need in their lineup over a guy like Pettersson. I mean, this guy's going to be a great all-around player all his career. And that's a guy I've been excited to see. And he's starting to show that now. Apart from him, there's not a lot of other young guys that have come in. Jack Rathbone's had a few games this year, and he probably will get a lot more now that Hamonic's hurt. But I think the Canucks still need to get more young guys. They got to keep their first round pick this year because they just have no one in the pipeline now past Podkolzin. And, Aiden McDonough's been good, but you're not sure if he's going to become a regular NHLer. But overall, I think if they can keep on their first round picks, and we'll see what this new GM does, because they could be trading some guys and try to fix the salary cap situation as well.
So assuming they do miss the playoffs this year, what changes are you expecting at the trade deadline, off season, where are you at?
Well, if the Canucks aren't in a playoff position or way out of one, I do see a few trades. I think JT Miller's going to be one guy that's going to be on that block. There's already been talk about it. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure that'll happen if the Canucks keep on this successful run, because you don't want to gut your team when it looks like you're kind of turning it around, because this is not late in the season yet. There's a tough road still, but if they are in that position at the deadline, I think they got to do that, because they can't be like in the past with Benny saying, well, they're not going to trade a bunch of guys they think they may make the playoffs. It's if you're even on if there's an if that you're not going to make it, I think they should make some trades. I don't know. Besser's been in the rumors. I don't want him traded. I think he still has, he scored 2 goals now under Boudreau. I think he still has a ton, and I don't think Canucks should give up on him yet. There's been talk about Horvat getting traded. I don't think that should happen either. But I mean, JT Miller's going to be one to be on the block. They got to shed salary. I mean, you can't you got to trade some salary out or do something, because Besser has to be re-signed in the offseason. Horvat's a season out for being re-signed. It's just so much that has to be done. You have no cap space. So there's going to have to be some trades that'll have to happen.
I did see rumors of Fiala possibly going there, but
yeah.
Honestly, I wouldn't mind having Besser in place of him, not going to lie, but obviously that's probably not going to happen. But going kind of in the past a little bit, I guess, would you like to see the Sedins take on a bigger role with the team?
Well, I think they're going to be in that position when Rutherford's saying about being a mentor. I think that's going to be a part of it, building these guys, because now the Sedins are already apparently have a bigger role in the organization now. They were kind of off the outside being consultants. I mean, they still have that title as being just consulting, but I think they'll grow into front office management. The best thing for me to see is having a GM, assistant GM tandem, Henrik the GM, Daniel the assistant, and then you go just like the captain, assistant, or alternate captain that they did when they were playing. So that would be just awesome. But they need to grow into that role. Can't be just thrown into it. So, but I definitely see a future there for those two.
Imagine trying to negotiate with both Sedin twins. It's like, oh no, you don't think I'm going to pass you to my brother here?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the Canucks weren't the only team this week to make some big changes. The Philadelphia Flyers also made changes behind their bench, firing head coach Alain Vigneault and assistant coach Michel Therrien. And it's convenient that Matt is on the show this week because he knows Vigneault well. Vigneault was a coach of the Canucks before he joined the Flyers. So I guess I wanted to have more of a roundtable. We'll give Matt a little bit of a break here and have a bit of a roundtable discussion, because this seems like it's a cycle that the Flyers can't get out of. It just seems like they're either firing a coach, trading a player, GM. It just seems like they can't get themselves into the next sort of contender status. So I guess my question for you guys is, what changes need to be made, or what would you do to try and turn this franchise around once and for all? We'll start with Hannah.
I mean, I remember when we were talking, going into the season, I was always saying that I thought Chicago was going to make a big step this year, and I was wrong. And I feel like, Christy, you were always saying that Flyers are going to make a big step, and
I was wrong.
I mean, I'm in the same boat with you.
I saw them yesterday live. I was very, very wrong.
Yeah, but I also I think I also had a much higher opinion on the Flyers in the offseason too, and really looking at that roster, you would think that they should be better than they are.
Mm-hmm.
And I think but they've been like that for better part of a decade now. I mean, since their last Stanley Cup run, they've almost always looked like they are good on paper, and then you watch them and they're not living up to expectations. So I think at this point, the only option is to, you've cleared house coaching and GM multiple times. It's time to start clearing house on the roster.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it is getting rid of a Claude Giroux and getting rid of Sean Cotier, and really just, get as much assets as you can and start letting the young guys play and see what happens, and just do a complete reset. I think the Flyers it's been almost a decade, and they've had a lot of the same guys, and it's not working out. And I think it is time to reset and move forward. And ideally get a new coach who is not someone who has been fired multiple times, like Alain Vigneault
I was
or
gonna say, be
Michael
nice
Therrien.
how you say that.
Yeah, right.
I don't know why this week in general, but it's really annoyed me how it's just the same guys circling around this league, and it's insanity. It's doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results.
Yeah, it's well, it threw me for a loop, when the GM position in Vancouver became open, like literally instantly everyone's like, oh, that he's like Mark Bergevin. I'm like, wait, he was just fired a week ago. Like, hold on. Like, crazy. Christy, do you agree with Hannah? There needs to be a rebuild of the roster?
Yeah, I was talking to people at the arena yesterday, and I think I didn't realize this either. I think that I didn't realize their roster was so old. I did not know how, and I feel like Giroux needs to go. I just think that for both sakes, I think they need a new leadership group in Philadelphia. I think he needs a change of scenery, maybe a more competitive team that will really light that fire for him again, that, to play with a purpose instead of just playing out your contract. But yeah, their issues, I think, are way beyond the coach at this point in time. They were so slow yesterday, and the Devils forwards are quick, but the Devils defense is not an overly fast group. And I just felt like they were flying past the Flyers. Haha, look at that. There's a lot of issues, I think, in Philadelphia right now.
Yeah.
And surprisingly, I don't think the goaltending is top of their list anymore.
No.
I feel like every season we're always like, oh, it's the Philadelphia goaltending. That I don't think is their top issue anymore.
No. Mariah, what do you think? What's going on in Philly?
So I'm not very familiar with Philadelphia at all, I'll be honest, because a lot of the East Coast teams, it's like, but I personally like Mike Yeo and Bruce Boudreau both. Granted, they both left the Wild, but I liked both of them. Yeo, I don't know. I just think he wasn't given enough of a chance in his role with the Wild, I guess. I don't remember what other team he's gone to, but I do agree with Hannah. There needs to be new blood to a point, but I have a soft spot for these two just because I like their personalities. And like Matt said with Boudreau, he seems to have gotten energy to that team. And I was listening to a podcast earlier with like the Wild's play-by-play guy and Russo from The Athletic. And they kind of talked about Boudreau and how he's able to kind of do that with teams, and they want to see him go through the year if he can keep this going or not. And I like them both, but I honestly, apart from that, I really don't know what Philadelphia needs to do other than get some younger guys, I guess.
Yeah.
I feel like they have good young guys. Like they have Joel Farabee and Morgan Frost has shown promise. more and more, the more I talk about it, the more I'm convinced they just need to get rid of half their roster and just let the young guys play it out and see what they can do.
They've had a lot of injuries too. They've been they've dealt with a lot. At one point, they had 4 centers out.
Yeah.
And Ryan Ellis hasn't played that much either.
And like Ivan Provorov was like, everyone thought he was gonna be one of the top young defensemen in the league, and for some reason this season he's just
he had a rough game,
like a shadow of him.
Yeah, he had a rough
like of his former self. So hopefully he can turn it around. Matt, what's your perspective on the Flyers?
Well, I mean, I thought they were going to take a step forward because they revamped their defense with a lot of, good names on that defense. I thought there was going to be a change, and Carter Hart's a great goaltender, and he's still really young. Like Christy said, this. I don't think the goaltending is a problem in Philly anymore. I think if you surround him with the good players, he's going to rise to that occasion. As for, moving on, I think you got to move on. Yeah, I agree. You got to move on from Giroux. I think he's kind of stagnated as a leader there. I think he needs a change of scenery himself. And the team just needs a new direction, because, you fire GMs, you fire coaches, and stuff's not changing. What has to change? I mean, it's the core group that you have now. You got to move, like the Canucks at that point when Vigneault was fired from the Canucks. They were starting to stagnate as a core group. They needed to move from that veteran group and move into some, a young new core. And I think the Philadelphia Flyers have to move into a new core. So, I mean, we mentioned Farabee, Morgan Frost, these are guys who are going to have to build around. Couturier is still great. He's still relatively young. So, I mean, he could be part of that, but I think you got to move on from the Giroux. They already moved on from Voracek. He was part of that old group. So I think that has to change before, you start trying to get a new GM and then go with this same group again. You can't. I mean, you're getting a new coach, a new GM, change your roster. So, I mean, we'll see what happens. I think Philly they have some good young players. I think they still have that future, but they got to transition from an old to the new.
Well, where should Giroux go?
Oh, that's a big question.
What team would he be a good fit with?
Oh, you should go to a contender, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to state the obvious here.
But the TSN released their like early trade bait list for the trade, like first sort of thing, and he's up there. I think he's in the top 3 or so. I mean, I think he needs to move on. I think it's, and it was the team said at the beginning of the season that they weren't going to negotiate a new contract with him until the end of the season, which usually means they're not going to.
Yeah.
So I think his days are numbered there. But
what's his cap hit? Because I'm not so.
You should know that. You're the master.
I know, but I don't. I don't know. I don't know every number off the top of my head. I'm a writer.
I mean, there was talk at one point, because it's not the first time that there have been rumors about Giroux, and there was at one point, I think they talk about him going home to play in Ottawa, but I just think right now that's not the right fit.
That's not a good spot for him.
For either side, for Ottawa or for him, I don't think so.
No.
But we'll see.
What about Edmonton loves their old people.
Claude Giroux's cap hits 8.275.
Oh gosh.
And he has a no movement clause too.
So he's gonna decide where he goes.
Yeah.
Basically. Yeah.
We'll see if another one wants to go to Vegas. Vegas is just gonna run out of spots. We're gonna start turning people down.
Well, it's gonna be a contender that needs a top 6 center, like another top 6 center for sure.
And it has cap space. At the deadline, I mean, it'll be prorated, but that's still pretty high cap hit.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it is.
That's a lot. I didn't realize there's that much.
Can choose where he goes too. So it's gonna be tough.
It's worth noting though, he is leading the team in points and I think goals. So it's not like he's not doing his part on the ice. He still can play.
But I agree. Yeah, I agree with Matt though. Like his leadership, I find has stagnated. Like he's not able to, bring bring the team to. Because
I
he's
mean,
pretty well surrounded. It's just
it's unfortunate because and when you think about the Flyers, I actually forgot he was the captain. So I mean, that's not good.
Especially he's been a captain for a while. So
Yeah.
That's
says
not
a
good.
lot.
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say the same thing. I mean, look at Minnesota. Suter, Parisi, Koivu all gone. New coach, new GM. I mean, not to jinx anything, things are going well. So I mean,
reset.
it shows how once you move and get that same group out, that
you got to, at some point, it's tough, but you got to do it.
It's not a knock on them as players.
No.
It's just it's a fact. It's a reality that
you've been somewhere too long and get too comfortable.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's all the time we have, unfortunately, for this week. Matt, thank you so much for joining us. We got you on for 2 topics, so we appreciate that. Thank you, ladies, as always, for being with me every week. It's always a blast. And thank you to all of you for your loyalty and listening and watching us every week. We really appreciate it. Make sure you're checking out all the other shows being produced by the Hockey Writers on YouTube and your favorite podcast platform. We have shows being published every day about all your favorite teams and all of the hot topics around the league. Make sure you're signing up for the Morning Skate newsletter, right, Christy? At
100%.
morningskate.io. You'll have all the best hockey news delivered to your inbox 5 days a week. And last but not least, make sure you're following us on social media as well. I've got to get my own plug in there. We're everywhere on social and Discord for you young folks who are cool and use Discord. We're on there as well. We have the Hockey Lounge where we're talking hockey every day. And that's all we have for this week. So we'll see you next week.